Well, the NHL Draft is only 2 days away, and the Blues currently have not that much in the way of draft capital. They've got a pick, one pick in each of the first, fifth, and sixth rounds, and that's about it. So with not much draft capital and with an NHL team that's starting to turn the page on a retool to become a contender once again, how should the Blues approach this year's draft? Should they trade away their first round pick? Should they trade higher up in the draft? Should they just stand pat and pick at 19? We'll talk about all that today. We've got a special guest, Sam Kohler, on to discuss what the Blues' strategy should be in this year's draft. All that and more today on Note News. All right, welcome into another episode of Note News. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast. It's John and Alec with you as always, and today we're joined by one of our favorite guests to have on, Sam Kohler. Sam, thanks for coming on. How you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me back. I think this is third time on the show.
Yeah, sounds about right. Fun. Yeah, we always enjoy it. So thanks for coming back on. If you haven't already, we'd appreciate, and if you are a fan of the Blues and are liking what you're hearing today, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel, like this video, all that good stuff. It's the best way to help us out. We're on Spotify and Apple. You can follow, rate, review, and then we're on socials, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at No News Pod. We appreciate everyone who does all that. Sam, where can the people find you if they want to know more about you?
Just on Twitter, at STL Analytics handle. Been pretty quiet since the playoffs ended, but with the summer kicking up and busy season for NHL transactions and draft, I'll definitely be a lot more active next couple weeks.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I believe we put your handle in the show notes, so everyone be sure to check out Sam's work as we move closer to this free agency, right? Should be
trades
are
fun
happening. As always. Yeah, trades are already happening. And then as far as like Blues news goes, got some like decently big stuff, right? It's not every day that your team does a full-blown rebrand, right? So what are y'all's takes to the new jerseys and logo and color scheme and all that?
I guess for me, I think it's been so cool to watch the reaction. Like, I think they're great. I would say it's more of like a side grade than an upgrade to me. Like, I liked the old kits a lot, and the like sort of pastel-y blue color isn't as much my thing, but I really like the aways. The logos are sick, so it's like it's kind of a side grade is what I say there, but seeing the reaction from other fan bases of being like jealous of the rebrand, and not even that, but seeing like NFL accounts or like just sports jersey accounts or other sports worlds that don't even like touch Blues hockey content be like, these are awesome. That's got me going pretty good. So I mean, we've been saying it's a great time to be a Blues fan, and I think once we see them on the ice too, they'll grow on me. I think when I first saw them, I was kind of meh on them, but I really warmed up to them the more and more I look at them, and so I like it a lot. And it seems like the rest of the non-Blues world that doesn't have like as much of a connection with our previous designs are much more in on it too.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. Like, I really, really like the new logos that they released. Like all the, I guess, like secondary and tertiary logos that they have. They're really cool. Like they're unique. I really want to get one of the hats that has one of the logos on it, or a shirt or something like that. Honestly, it'd be cool. It probably opens the door to do a third jersey with those on it in the future. And yeah, like you said, Alec, the white jerseys look so good. Honestly, I'll really miss the two-tone blue that we had for the home jerseys for the last 10 years, but I guess those are still in rotation too. So, they want a cup in the old jerseys, so you can't really throw those out. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I especially like the new note too. I think it's sharper. It looks better. It looks cooler. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna look great on the ice. I got no complaints about the rebrand at all.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that they didn't like crazy screw it up, right? Which could like feasibly happen when team does a rebrand like this. Yeah, I think I agree. I really like the away kits. I agree with Alec. Shade of blue is not my favorite. Sam, I also am going to miss the two tones. But I think I'll reserve judgment until I see those blue ones on the ice, because I think it could look clean with sort of the new like the other new components. Like I for one like the numbers and lettering. I know a lot of people don't like just the simple monotone like block lettering and numbering on it, but I actually kind of like it. I think it stands out in a good way. But I mean, I wouldn't hate if it went back to like numbers with borders or anything like that. But yeah, I love those secondary alternate logos as well. And I would love if there was like, yeah, a jersey with that as the centerpiece. That would be so cool. That Fleur de Lis treble clef one especially is so clean.
Yeah, I was going to ask before we get into player talk, which of the three are your guys' favorite logo? There's the Fleur de Lis, there's the just the STL that they did for the Winter Classic, and then there's the and tune in the chat too with what you guys prefer. The third is the trumpet with the like the B.
Trumpet with the arch and the Mississippi on it too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, I had to look them up. I'm looking them up to see them again.
I think I gotta go with the treble clef Fleur de Lis, just because I really like the STL treble clef. But it is I don't know, like I like the vibe of that one because it also is a little bit reminiscent of like the Cardinals logo, right? And it feels like kind of like a classic sports like letter logo, you know. But that Fleur de Lis treble clef, it's just like so simple and creative. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I agree. That it looks honestly that I guess it'd be too New Orleans Saints to be an actual logo, but that one would be cool to see on a jersey. And I think the horn one looks cool too. I'm trying to visualize it on the jersey though, and I think it would be kind of goofy, but I like the river with the. I guess the horn's almost like a B for blues if you really if you squint hard enough.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm also on the Fleur de Lis train. I think the treble clef in the middle it's just so. I mean, the trumpet I do love because I am a trumpet player myself and I listen to a lot of trumpet music. But yeah, and the river's so cool. It's all so cool, but I think the Fleur de Lis is just a little bit like sharper to me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last question on this before we move on. You get one current player on the Blues. Whose jersey you're getting, home or away? I think mine is pretty obvious, so I'll go ahead and say it. I'm gonna get the Broberg aways. I am a Broberg stan, and as soon as those come out, I think I'm gonna be snatching it up. I already know Sam's going Texier too.
Yeah, no, that might be a waste of money. Or I don't know. You have to be have to be a real hardo to get an Alexander Texier.
Yeah.
I'd probably get Snuggerud, and I think I would do. Actually, I don't know. I don't really like the 21. Yeah, all right, whatever. I'll do Snuggerud, and I'll do the aways too. I think that's a sick jersey.
Yeah, I think I just need a Thomas jersey. Like it's past time I have a Thomas jersey. But honestly, and definitely the aways too. The aways are so sharp. But honestly, like also considering, I think a Binner away would look really nice with the 50, and just like Binner's such a dog, to have it be an away jersey is cooler. But
yeah, I kind of need a new jersey too. Like I've been rocking the Jaden Schwartz Reebok jersey since I was like 14 years old, so could get an upgrade at some point.
Upgrade to Texier. There you go.
Yeah.
Some good picks. All right, let's get into what we're here to talk about, which is the NHL draft. The 2025 draft is gonna in LA, I believe, and it starts on June 27th, so we're a couple days away. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it is going to be same as usual. First 2 rounds on night 1, and then the rest of them.
I think just
night 2.
The first round on Friday, and then 2 through 7 on Saturday.
Heard. Gotcha. Yeah, so that's what we're looking at, 27th and 28th. And the word out there is that this draft seems like the draft class seems to be a little weaker than most years, at least with like the high upside players, I guess. It's just not that deep. So I mean, it's an interesting like time. The way that this draft class lines up with the Blues window and sort of where they're at as an organization. It's like they don't really need to prioritize this year's draft. They're not in like a position of needing to get, a needle moving prospect, but at the same time, they're young enough that players drafted in this window could still like enter the, could still make their way onto the team when they're ready to compete for a Stanley Cup. So it's interesting, and so we're gonna sort of break down strategy and stuff today. If you're interested in like a draft preview where we, I say we, but Alec was the one that did it, where Alec goes into some specific players. He went by position, so there's really only one goalie in the first round, but he also talked about some forwards and defensemen that the Blues could potentially pick at 19. If we have time, we might get to some of that today, but if you want a more in-depth sort of, I guess, monologue on that, then go check out our last episode where Alec held down the fort solo. So shout out Alec. Okay, but for today, we're going to be making the case for the Blues to do a few different things and sort of explore their options here as an organization. As I mentioned, interesting spot for them. 19, it's not a great spot, especially in this year's draft. So it's not like there's difference-making talent there. So I think we'll talk about, should they stick and pick, right? Should they just roll with it, pick at 19 and hope for the best? Should they trade up for a higher pick in the draft? Should they trade back, trade their pick and maybe get some second rounders or something? Or should they just trade it away for like a player? Should they just trade it away entirely and just kind of pick it at 5 and in the 5th and 6th rounds? So let's make the case for these different scenarios. Alec, what do you think we should start with here?
I think it feels like trading is the pressing thing on people's minds.
Yeah.
So let's go with trading first, and I guess we'll just start, full pedal to the gas here, trading away the pick entirely.
Okay.
For players specifically, I should say.
Yeah, for sure. So the question we're trying to ask here, or I guess trying to answer here, is why should the Blues trade away their pick? Let's get behind like the rationale for this, and then maybe we can talk about some potential interested teams or a kind of return. But Sam, why don't you go ahead and take it first? Why do you think the Blues should potentially trade away their number 19 pick?
I think it just kind of lines up with where they're at as a team. Like, they've drafted a lot of times in the first round in the last 3 or 4 years. Like, I think they have like 5 first-round picks who are in the organization, but 5 first-round picks from 2021 onward that are in the organization, but not in the NHL. So, like, that's more than a lot of teams, especially playoff teams. And I think where you're looking at in their system, like, they already have a lot of young players contributing too, and the team is good, right? Like, they were one of the best teams in the league in the second half. They basically won a playoff series. I know they lost, but like, they were basically in the second round of the playoffs, so in the final 8. So they're already a good team. They should be trying to add to their roster, especially with the ages of some of their players, like in the contract structures of some of their players, like Holloway and Broberg are going to be cheap for another year. They've got guys on ELC. They've got some older players who you're not sure how much longer they're going to be, at their top level for. Like, I think the time is to try to improve that team. And, the NHL, I think, is pretty wide open if you look at it next year. I don't see a reason why the Blues can't be one of the best teams. So if there's a player out there where they can go and get a pick, or who they can go and get for that pick and maybe something else, then I don't see why they shouldn't.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I'd add to that, like, it really is about like timing, and it feels like at moments like this when you're in a transition to elevate to the next tier of NHL team, like going from playoff hopeful to playoff contender to eventually cup contender, it feels so much more relevant to trading a first round pick now versus like 2 years ago, coming off of their worst season in a long time. If they had instead traded a first round pick for like Jacob Chikrin, that probably would have made the next year better, but I'm not sure that it changes the window of what you're trying to do. Um, and it would be nice to have a player like that on the roster now, getting him while you're struggling, but that still then shortens the amount of time that you have the player when you eventually do turn it around. And so I think the point is well made that it's about what you're going to get at 19 isn't going to affect this team for years anyway. And until the next window of Blues contention, which is too far ahead to think about, it would be sort of a supplementary ad, which, it maybe if you're really trying to cope, you could say maybe we'll just land it in the fifth or sixth round when we're picking anyways. But more likely than not, you'd be looking to next year's first round pick, or even like Adam Uticek, last year's first round pick, to be that supplementary additional piece. Um, and the timing of the Blues are good now, and they could be really really good if they go and get an impact NHL player. Now is the time in an organization's structure when you want to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I agree there. Um, the only thing, and a couple of people have pointed it out in the chat, is at 19, it's not like that's exactly a in-demand spot in the draft, right? Which is part of why it's part of the rationale for trading the pick in the first place. But I mean, it also could make it difficult to find you know, a taker for that pick just because it's not a very deep class or whatever. So um, it could be a scenario where the Blues would have to package something else along with it, whether it's a player or a prospect or um, I don't know, more picks or something like that. So um, I mean, we've seen. I don't think we should have this full blown discussion right now, but um, as of like today and recently, we've seen Jordan Kyrie's name pop up on the trade conversation. Thanks a lot, Frank Saravalli. And while I still don't think that's happening, we've got like 5 days left before his no trade kicks in. So technically, like that window is still open right now. So maybe he's part of the package, and you get someone like Dobson or something like that, um, or maybe you use that pick to sweeten the deal for like Justin Falk, who I know is um, still has a no trade right now, but like maybe you can get him to waive it before the draft or something. I don't know. So like, what do y'all think about the, I guess, attractiveness of that pick, and like, can the pick itself find a buyer, or do you think the Blues should maybe try to sweeten the deal so they can get a bigger return? Because I think they're gonna have a hard time moving the needle just trading futures right now.
I think, can I weigh in real quick on, is it crazy for me to say on the Dobson stuff, is it crazy for me to say that like Kyrou for Dobson straight up is unfairly skewed against us? Like it feels like they
I
would
don't think
have
that's
to give up
crazy.
more because like Kyrou's age and how good he's shown to be and whatever anyways. But to answer your question, I don't know. It gets me so fired up. To answer your question, I think more so that or I don't know. I'll kick it to Sam. I just wanted to weigh in on the Dobson stuff, I guess. But what
Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
I think, yeah, I think the issue with trading picks this year is that like, I think over the last couple of years, the value of a first round pick in general has been, especially these later first round picks, has been decreasing. I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, you're trading a first round pick, you're expecting to get a really good player back. Whereas like some of the players I've gotten traded for first round picks in the last couple of years, like Scott Lawton got traded for a first round pick at the deadline. Ben Sherratt a few
Mm-hmm.
years ago, like it just doesn't really buy you what it once used to, and even at 19. And if the opinion of this draft, which I can't say for sure if it's a good draft or a bad draft, I don't know too much about the players this year, but I think like if the opinion around the league and on the internet is that this draft is not strong, and the Blues are picking 19th, and what we've heard recently is that like everybody is trying to move these picks for players. It's like, yeah, how much value really does the 19th overall pick carry? I guess the one thing that kind of does work in the Blues' favor is that 19 is pretty high for playoff teams, right? So like teams that are trying to get better, 19th is better than 25th. So yeah. I guess that gives the Blues a little bit of an edge. But yeah, I mean, I think if they're trying to bring in a true impact player, it's going to be a lot more than just the first round pick. I mean,
yeah,
I think a first round pick these days buys you like maybe a third line center, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good point for sure. And one thing I'm sort of curious to see if they have the pick as of draft day, do they wait and see how the draft kind of develops, and maybe there's, as the, for example, the center depth or the defenseman depths in the draft class starts to wither away, is there a team that's sort of in that 20 to 25 to 30 range, Sam, that maybe, like you said, would maybe want to move up and could be interesting. Maybe there's someone out there that would convince themselves they don't want to let, I don't know, who's a defenseman that could go in that range, like a Cam Reed or a Hensler, a Logan Hensler get away, or someone like that. Like maybe it's like this is the last guy, and we want to get that spot and be able to take that guy. So yeah, I'd be interested to see, like I said, how that develops day of, because I don't think Army's afraid of waiting till the last minute to trade a pick like that for sure.
Yeah, I think the whole trade up versus trade back thing will be pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know. I think if by the numbers, trading back is always pretty much the better option. Like NHL teams will pretty much always trade more value than trading up, or will trade more value than their jump in picks is actually worth, just based on like, you can get two players instead of one, and you're not really moving back that far usually. But the one thing with the Blues and Doug Armstrong is they've basically never traded back, especially in the first round. I know they haven't in the first round. They don't even really do it much in later rounds. They're more of a team that's like, okay, we have a guy, we're going to trade up so we can get him. And honestly, like, I can't really fault that logic. But yeah, I think this is maybe the one year where we could see that. Like if there's not somebody that the Blues like at 19, and yeah, like a team wants to move up, I think it would make a lot of sense because they only have 3 picks. They have 19, and then they don't have a pick to the 4th round. So is it 5th round? Do they have a 4th round pick?
Yeah,
they traded it for Texier. Yeah.
Yep.
So they don't pick for like 150 picks after pick 19. So I think it would make sense if someone comes to them and wants to trade up.
Yeah, Alec, let me get your thoughts on this because I think you really wanted to talk about the trading back side of that coin. So what are your thoughts on the Blues? And like Sam said, maybe this is the year it finally happens. What do you think about trading back in the first round, or even giving up your first round for some second rounders or something like that?
Yeah, I'm totally on this is the year to do so. And I honestly, this is sneakily my favorite strategy of them to use for the picks this year. When you look at Doug Armstrong, and this will probably be his last like full Doug Armstrong draft. We don't exactly know when the transition will take place, but it's sometime next offseason. But if this is his last draft, then I just don't really think that he's gonna. It feels like he's either gonna make like 1 selection or like 4, because I just don't really see him. I don't see him letting the board fall to him in a draft like this. It just doesn't really feel like his type of game. And the other thing about that is the caliber of player that you might get at 19 versus at like 38 or something is not going to be too terribly distinguished. Perhaps there's a lot higher of a floor for the guy at 19, but especially with like the Unicek pick last year, the Blues aren't necessarily drafting high floor guys, especially in like the earlier rounds of the draft. They're more targeting those home run swings of what they can potentially land on a guy like a Bolduc or a Snuggerud or someone that really hits. And I just think that with the way that every, I don't know, inclination about this draft class, to me, it makes the most sense to trade back. And I say that because Doug Armstrong has a really, really good record of picking in later rounds, like in the second round. Like Jordan Kyrou was a second round guy. Colton Parayko was like a fourth round guy or something. He's got a really great eye for talent, and that is in the first round, but also earlier in the draft. If like Sam said, if they have a player they can identify, I would expect this year they probably don't have that guy. They probably have more quantity of names rather than like we need to get, I don't know, say Kashawn Aitchison. Then I think trading back and getting more lottery tickets for Doug Armstrong essentially is the way to go, because the draft really is kind of a lottery anyways. If you can let one of the best drafters in the league have more chances at like a high selection pick, to me that's just an efficient use of resources. It just makes sense. And I think like, especially like in my head, it's trading out of the first for like 2 seconds, or even to get draft capital for next year, because trades are going to have to be a part of how this team roster builds. Excuse me, gosh, how this team builds their roster. If you can get more assets for like next year's trade deadline, when perhaps the Blues are making a push, then you're really starting to cook and let this roster more dynamically evolve rather than the very slow draft and develop that a player at 19 isn't even guaranteed to beat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good argument there. Now, we started to get to it a little bit, but like trading up in the draft and sort of sticking and picking, those are kind of our two main um, scenarios left to discuss. And I think before we do, I'd be interested to see what you think, Sam, because you do some work sort of covering um, the Blues prospect system, right? Like AHL Springfield and stuff like that. So um, if they do stick and pick, or if they do decide to trade up, like what needs do you see in the Blues prospect system that they should be looking to address if they decide to prioritize the pick they have or a higher pick? Um, in any positions of need, or any like player types that you think they should be looking to draft if they do decide to make a pick?
Yeah, I think maybe not in terms of position, but I think they kind of do have they haven't really drafted like a real like a skiller, I would say, in the last 4 or 5 years. Like a lot of these guys that they've picked have been good offensive players, but they're more shooters. They're more, you know, I'd say a little more passive. They're not as much play drivers, but they're still obviously really good players and good prospects. I think the one guy they haven't really had a chance to pick is a guy who really drives play and has speed and skill to get up the ice. And but yeah, I mean, I think you just at the draft, especially in one that theoretically does not have as much talent, you just have to pick the most talented and most projectable player available. I don't really think you can really look for strengths and weaknesses in your system. You just have to, if a guy's there who you think is going to help you the most in the next 5 years, then I think that's what you got to go for.
Cool. Yeah. And well, so let me ask you this then. So I feel like the next logical thing to talk about is should they trade up, or why should they trade up? Sort of answering that question. Do you think there's any situation where they should try trading up to a higher spot, or like are there any players in this year's class that either of you think maybe they should try moving up to acquire, or like what are your thoughts? Do you see anything in the draft ahead of 19 that you see as either player or player type, or something like that you think if this opportunity presents itself, the Blues should jump on that?
I am personally a huge Victor Eklund guy. I think he's a ton of fun. I know there's a lot of sort of question marks about if he can really project to the next level, but that's a trade up name. Or in my video on the like prospects, I said probably my favorite was Kolresny as a center,
Mm-hmm.
just because the Blues don't have a lot of center options. Um, so those are probably two names, and then I guess if for some reason, because some of the mock drafts recently have had Radim Murtka falling, I don't think he's going to fall anywhere feasible for a trade up. But this board really could land any way outside of the top two, pretty much. Um, at least according to the mock drafts, like it is all over the map. But yeah, I'm high on Victor Eklund and Radim Murtka as well as Kolresny if they're not too far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I think I'm sure there's guys that the Blues would want to trade up for, but to be honest, I don't think they can trade up this year just because they don't have any other picks. To move up from 19 to 10, they'd probably have to throw in something really good, like someone they've already drafted. I don't know. I just don't think it's feasible. So I'm not expecting it. I think theoretically, if they traded somebody off their roster, they could maybe move up, but I don't think. I'm not expecting that. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, that's fair. I think if they were to do it, um, the most feasible, you know, the most feasible scenario would be one that I think, like some of the names that you just identified, Alec, like someone like an Eklund or a Smith or an Aitchison or a Cam Reed, or someone like that. I think is projected to go ahead of where the Blues are picking, but not by much, and so like it wouldn't cost them. At least I don't think it would cost them a ton to sort of move up a few spots to get a name like that. But at the same time, yeah, I think Sam, your point is well made that the most attractive parts of a deal like that, second or third round pick, they just don't have right now, and so it might not be worth trading away a prospect or a player to get that done. Um, Reshny, I feel like there's a good enough chance that he falls to 19 that it's worth just waiting to see if he does. Um, so I feel like this is a natural segue onto sticking and picking, right? So um, is there a case to be made for the Blues just keeping their pick and making a selection at 19? Because um, trading up might be too difficult, and if they can't find a taker to acquire like an NHL ready needle mover and have that pick be a part of the deal, could it just be worth sticking with it and seeing what you get at 19?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the argument for sticking at 19 is that good players get picked every year after 20, and Alex or sorry Alec mentioned it earlier. The Blues have been really good at drafting. Doug Armstrong has routinely gotten guys after pick 15. I think this draft kind of reminds me a little bit of 2021, which I think is a little bit similar at the top, where there weren't too many players where everyone was over the moon about. And, I think the consensus was that it was, not a great draft. And also people didn't really scout that draft as much. But you look back at that draft already,
Mm-hmm.
and Wyatt Johnston went 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible player. Like the Blues got Zach Bolduc at 16 or 17. There's going to be a good player at 19. And the other thing is too, like the Blues have been pretty much never bad since I've been a fan. And one of the reasons why is that they're always able to have this next layer of talent coming. And I think that's something that, you want going forward. Like you always want to have somebody who can step in a couple of years and be a useful or impactful player.
Yeah, that pipeline has to be strong. Like well, not all, but a lot of the best winning teams keep that pipeline strong, keep it flowing. I mean, like look at a team like Florida, maybe not so much. built in a different way. But like, yeah, for sure, that it definitely helps. We do this a lot, but it's just because it's the other big guy in town is the St. Louis Cardinals, and I mean the reason that they've been in the situation that they've been in for the past few seasons is because they sort of let their draft and develop, their development system kind of go by the wayside, and tried to plug holes at the major league level when they weren't really ready for when they probably should have been prioritizing prospect development and stuff like that. But different sports, but I think it still applies. You got to keep that healthy, and yeah, like you said, it's a big reason why the Blues have had such extended success, and yeah, I think that's a good point. What about you, Alec?
Yeah, I actually am really on the like probably trading back is what I want the Blues to do, but I think my like second option would be just sticking and picking, just because I think you'd have to give up too much in a trade for a win now NHL player, most likely. I think it could be really wise. I mean, you want to talk about players drafted after 19 that have made an NHL impact. Jimmy Snuggerud was taken 23rd overall in 2022. Like, there's absolutely a track record that Doug Armstrong can find talent at these ranges, and it could be like a, Jaden Schwartz or an Alex Steen, or like these supplementary bottom nine forwards that become fan favorites because they just play so hard and fit into their role essentially. Or you could get a real steal in a Snuggerud that could actually become like the next, Jordan Kyrou or the next star. And again, like Kyrou was a second round pick. Like there's so much of a track record for Doug Armstrong that I'm really honestly like whoever they end up taking at the first round, I'm probably gonna end up liking just because I trust this front office talent acquisition and evaluation department so much. And I think that even if there isn't necessarily the high end talent at 19, like of course there's not. There's never a year where 19th overall is going to get you like a player to the caliber of Porter Martone. That just doesn't happen. The Blues are going to be picking in this kind of range for hopefully a long time, and so they're going to kind of have to get used to the uncomfortability of this. Because the other piece of this that I think is maybe not getting talked about enough is that this is really the year where they're going to have to show Alex Steen the ropes of what exactly the Blues identify and target in the first round. And trading out of that pick is not a good way to do so. He was obviously involved in the Yurachek pick last year, and I think played probably a decent role in that selection. But the book is still being written on his career, and to get him with another chance with Doug Armstrong at the helm, I think would set this team up a lot better. That part is sort of always playing on the back of my mind, and I just think that there's so much of a track record of being able to find talent and being able to find high end talent, or maybe not high end, but really really good supplementary talent, maybe like a Zach Bolduc or something. That I just think that they don't have a lot of assets right now to use to trade up or trade out of this pick. That's why I think trading back could be helpful. Or, like I said, sticking and picking could be really helpful too, just because they're already sort of playing with fire to try and finesse the draft and maximize it to the nth degree. At the end of the day, you kind of have to take what you're given. And what they have is a decent chance to get a pretty good contributor. This front office has my trust, so I actually really like sticking and picking.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to see like if I were Doug Armstrong, and I'm not for good reason, but if I were Doug Armstrong, and I know, I'm not. I know what you've been thinking, Alec, but it's not true. I've heard the allegations. If I were Doug Armstrong, I would honestly just kind of, I think, wait and see how the draft develops. Like plan A, stick and pick at 19. But if by the time you get there, none of the guys that you're really crazy about are left, then yeah, like trading back and getting some more picks in that draft to make some dart throws anyway, and then um, maybe having more futures to deal next deadline, like you said. So yeah, I think if someone's available at 19 that they like, great. But if not, I don't think they should be set on keeping that pick by any means. We got a little time to talk about some specific um, players that could be available around 19. But does anyone else have any thoughts on Blues strategy, generally speaking, what they should do with their pick, trade it or not, or whatever else, before we talk about some specific guys?
Yeah, I think what you just said is probably how it goes in the actual draft room. Like, I think what the teams are doing right now is they're calling other teams and they're saying, hey, like, we have our guy. If he's available here, we're going to trade up for him. What would that look like? Or, hey, let's say we get to our pick and we, all our guys are gone. What would you give us for this pick? And I think that it'll just kind of be how the draft plays out. Like, I'm sure that the Blues have a list of 12 guys, and if two of them are there when they have 4 picks left, they're going to be or when there's 4 picks until the Blues pick, they're going to be excited. So yeah, I think they'll play it by ear, unless of course that they trade it for somebody else in the next couple days.
Yeah, but even then, I kind of feel like it is probably, even if it is for a player.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Alec?
Oh, no.
Alec, if you're there, we lost you, but I'm sure he'll be back. He tends to have some internet issues, but oh well. R.I.P. Alec. We can just wait for him to return, but yeah, I think, I mean, like I already said, yeah, I agree with you there. Is there any but before we talk about some specific players, is there any I think it's you that I've seen be like a really big proponent of Noah Dobson, right? Or kind of a big fan. Like, is there anyone out there who you're like, this is who I think they should prioritize if they were to, because as you said, we have a couple days. Oh, he's gone. He texted me. Let's see. I mean, because they have a couple of days before the draft, like you said, and so there is time to make a trade for potentially an NHL level player or someone who's just on the cusp. So, is there anyone out there that you think, if this guy's available, absolutely they should go get him?
Yeah, I think Dobson's probably that guy. I've talked about it a couple times. I think you look at the profile that he is. He's a 24-year-old defenseman. He's big. He's lanky. He has offensive skill. He had 70 points, and his underlying numbers were really good this year too. Even if I think he had some tough moments where there are some goals against that were on him. I think he was deep in the minus this year, but Noah Dobson is really, really good. And I think if you can get him on the Blues and you've got a top 4 of Fowler and Parayko, which was a legitimate top pair last year, Broberg, who showed he's probably one of the best second pairing defensemen in the league, and then Dobson, who I think profiles as a first pairing defenseman as well. That's an outstanding top 4. Like that might be the best. It's in the top 5 defensive cores in the league. I'd have to look around and see which other ones are up there, but yeah, I mean, that would be great. Obviously, it comes down to a matter of what's it going to cost and what is Dobson going to want in his contract. And I think there's some hard lines you could draw there, but yeah, I mean, the idea of Noah Dobson is great. If he's out there, they should try to make it happen.
For sure. And I think the figure I've seen out there is just north of $9 million. Do you think that's fair payment for his services?
I think it's kind of risky, but I think it's okay. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. The going rate for really good defensemen is going to be high. I mean, Parayko, you have at only 6.5, but if Parayko was available now, he'd be he'd be up at 9 or 10.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think you might be able to get him a little lower than that, just because he wasn't very good this year, or his production wasn't as good this year, and he had some tough moments. I think maybe you could get him around 8, 8.5, and I think that looks really good in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, right. Like the rising cap, all of the contracts that are signed in the next couple of years are gonna look like overpays. We're just gonna have to get used to the new reality of NHL contracts here.
Yeah.
But especially for like a right shot or like a right defenseman, those can be hard to come by, especially at Dobson's level and at his age. So yeah, it could be a really really interesting acquisition there. Okay, before we wrap up, because I think Alec is probably gone for good.
Oh no.
This is from Alec to the people. Wi-Fi died, totally shot, done for the episode. But he said to tell the people to be aware that draft night is the night to watch for a trade, according to Alec, whether it's for a prospect or a player. That's what he thinks. So R.I.P. Alec.
Sweet.
We'll remember him. But are there any guys around 19? I know you said you're not super familiar with this draft class, but are there any names that you've heard or that you've come across that interest you in that range that maybe you think the Blues should take a look at?
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot. Like I think there's a lot of players this year, and really every year there's players that are good and are going to be legitimate NHL players who help you win games. And I think especially for this year and every year too, like there's guys available at this point in the draft where it's like you're not expecting it to. Like last year, I think one of the guys was Liam Greentree was available, like Trevor Connolly, really, really talented players at 19th overall. Specific guys this year though, like I think Hensler, I would be kind of surprised if Hensler was there at 19, but apparently, from what I saw, he was okay at the World Juniors, but he had a really, really good second half, and he's flashed really, really well at World Junior tournaments. Like the U18 tournament a year ago, he was really good.
Yeah.
Let's see. I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, someone you're not expecting to be available at 19 is available, like Jackson Smith or help me out. Who's somebody else?
Like a Cam Reed or someone like that.
Yeah, I think he'll be available. I'd be surprised if the Blues took him. I think they've kind of shied away from smaller guys.
Sure.
But
you could get into the forwards too. I mean, like one guy I like and Alec mentioned him already is Kohler. Just like there's not a ton of center in the system right now, and I don't know. I like him. I think good defensively, good details. Only concern with him, skilled for sure. The skill and the compete are like the two biggest items in the pro column. Only thing is skating isn't as great, and size isn't as not as big as some of the other guys in this class, but he is someone who probably around 19 would really excite me, and if he's available, I would definitely like if the Blues got him. But every mock I've seen, it's like such a toss up as to, like, beyond the top 4 or 5. It's just like no one knows what's going to happen. It is definitely interesting.
I think,
sorry. No, go for it.
I was gonna say one more guy I think like who interests me, but I don't think the Blues will pick. And he kind of fits the mold of kind of what I was talking about later, which is what they've avoided in the draft as like a really high skill playmaker, someone who can push the pace. I think Cullen Potter is really the only guy at 19 who will probably be there, who I think could fit that bill. Obviously he's 5'9". The Blues have been pretty shy on smaller players the last couple drafts, so I'd be surprised if they took him. But he's a guy who legitimately is a great skater and has a ton of skill. His highlight tape as a freshman at Arizona State, which is not a joke at all. Like, I think you compare him to some other guys who were not even in college as in their U18 season and he might blow them out of the water. But I think he's an interesting one. Again, I'd be surprised if that's the route they go, but I think he would be a lot of fun to see as a Blue.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great pick there. I don't think it's a stretch to say he might be the best skater in the not like best skater as in forward or defenseman. I'm talking about like skating skill. He might have the best skate tool in the draft class. Like he can really fly.
Yeah.
I like his IQ as well. Not a bad scorer either. That's a good pick. I like it.
Yeah.
Any defenseman you like? I mean, you mentioned Hensler. I think I think he could be available around 19. Some mocks have him going later. Sasha Boumedienne is another guy that I've seen go to the Blues and I've been hearing about around this range. I mean, we talked about Cam Reed a little already, or Jackson Smith could fall. Keyshawn Aitchison could fall. Any defensemen? I mean, you mentioned Hensler, like I said, but any others that you think could be available around 19 that you might be interested in?
I think thinking from the Blues perspective, if Hensler is available, I feel like that's gotta be the guy. I think there's a pretty projectable player there. Like obviously, if Jackson Smith is available at 19, I think that would be a ton of fun. Like that would almost kind of remind me of the Thomas Harley type pick from 2019 that Dallas had. I'm not too interested in Boumedienne or Aitchison. I think will be gone.
Yeah.
Mertka will probably be gone. I don't think the Blues will be too interested in Reed, although he might be interesting. I think he kind of profiles a little similar to Cam Fowler, but again, that's kind of the profile they've avoided. Honestly, I'd be interested to see if they go goalie this year. And I know it's pretty rare to see a goalie go in the first round, but someone pointed out in the chat earlier is that the Blues haven't taken a goalie in a long time, and they barely have any in their system. They have Colton Ellis, who's, I mean, he's pretty old now. Like, he's still a prospect, but he's been in the system for 6 years, and then basically nothing else. I wouldn't surprise me if, like, I'm not too familiar with the top goalies in this draft. I think it's Ravensburgen's the top one.
Yeah, he is, and I think he goes first round. Yeah.
Yeah, like it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know. That doesn't seem like something the Blues would do. Like they've never gone goalies high in the draft, but
I think like third round is the highest.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they maybe trade into the middle rounds and try to get a goalie, just because they haven't gotten one in such a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something I'd be surprised if they don't draft one at all, because it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's a great point as well. Ravensburgen is, I think the top guy here. I think he probably goes a little later than 19, but yeah, like if they trade back and get someone else, like you said, starting to run thin after the goalie factory that they've had going for a little while here.
Yeah.
So yeah, great point. Alec, gosh, R.I.P. Alec, forever in our hearts. Sam, do you think there's any chance I get picked in the first round?
How old are you?
24. Probably not.
I don't think you're eligible anymore.
Dang, it's a shame.
I'm out of eligibility too. It's all right.
I'm sorry, man. Well, maybe I'll sign a contract on July 1st or something.
Yeah, you could be a college free agent.
Yeah, there we go. All right, I'll holding out hope. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Sam. We really appreciate you coming on as always. It's always a lot of fun. Yeah, it's always great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks again. I love coming on.
Yeah, of course. We'll have to have you back later this summer at some point. I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about in Blues land.
Hope so.
Yeah, for sure. So the draft is in a couple days. We'll be back pretty soon after the draft to break down what the Blues did, whether it's a trade or whether they pick at 19 and sort of go with that plan. We'll be here to react and provide analysis pretty soon after, like I said. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. And then right after that, we've got free agency starts on July 1. It should be pretty interesting. Hopefully the Blues have a an active off season as they look to get further into the contention window. So summer is simultaneously one of the most exciting times to be a hockey fan and one of the most boring times to be a hockey fan, because it's a long summer, but early July sure is fun.
Real fast.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, if you want to hear more about that, or as we sort of approach free agency and the trade market heats up, if you want to hear about some speculation and reactions and all that, we'd appreciate if you'd come back and tune into Note News. You can find us on YouTube. Please subscribe and like this video if you haven't already. Those are the best ways to help us out and get the algorithm to hype us up to other Blues fans. And then follow, rate, review wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Follow us on socials at Note News Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And then if you're joining us a little bit late, missed the beginning, we talked about the Blues rebrand. So go check that out once we wrap up here. Watch the beginning of the episode. And just a little bit of a teaser. Note News might have something similar and fun and interesting happening soon as well. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, teaser trailer, right? All right, that'll do it for us this time. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks again, Sam, for coming on. We'll see everyone next time, and let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.